Hey, welcome. Hello, everybody. It's so good to be here and to have these conversations with you. And we'd love to hear if there's anything that you resonate with, please put it in the comments below. My name is Padma. If you don't know me, I am a yoga therapist, an energy healer, and a body worker. And this is a colleague and friend, Anumeha Gupta, and I'm going to have her introduce her work to you before we begin our conversation.
Sure. Thank you, Padma. So, hi everyone. My name is Anumeha, and I mainly work with women, helping them transform anger into enlightenment so that they can release that energy to do more good in the world.
Mm.
And the tools I use are mainly Ayurveda, yoga. I'm also a Theta Healing practitioner, and yeah, and more of a spiritual mentor for
Yeah,
women.
beautiful, beautiful. So there's a lot of parallel, different. And I love having these conversations because it's different vantage points of very similar work, right? It's really about bringing wholeness to people.
Mm-hmm.
And through movement, which I love because it's an embodiment tool. And what does that mean? It's kind of a word that gets moved around, but to me, it's really just being at home within ourselves. I think when I was younger, I spent a lot of time disconnected. And even in spiritual practice, I think I use spiritual practice to move away from lots of difficult feelings or circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's something really precious about being able to be present with and build strength by being present with. And I love what you said. We were speaking earlier before we came live about emotions and anger. And we were having questions about what's the difference between emotions and feeling. And we looked up one definition that talked about emotions being the physical expression, that then the feeling is more of a cognitive how it gets expressed, right? That the emotion is probably more primal, and that the feeling is more of the conscious, emotional, more unconscious and body focused. And I really like that, just in that sense of me, how to let things move through me, as opposed to holding things, being afraid to feel them, or being afraid of the impact on others or on myself. And so cycling back to what you just said about women and anger, and what is your, and I'm assuming that you work with women in an anger because that's something that's dear to you.
Yeah.
Just like I work with embodiment because it's dear to me. So,
Yeah.
so what is that? How did that come about for you?
So I have noticed that even as a child, I was a very calm child. I loved keeping the peace.
Mm.
And so much so that I remember my dad telling me if he gave me a choice between vanilla and chocolate ice cream, I will think about what my dad wants me to have and then make the choice.
Mm.
So I spent a long time, actually, a large part of my life making choices. First of all, not knowing what I wanted, and then trying to keep the peace in the room. And then one day exploding for no reason at all. And then exploding so violently in the way that I had to throw something to calm down, so angry in the body that my hand had to throw. So I had to become an expert at choosing what to throw and where to aim. And so it was not like I was angry all the time. If you saw me, I was very peaceful. But I used to have these outbursts, which were followed by this really heavy feeling of guilt.
Mm.
Because at my core level, I want to keep peace.
Mm.
So it felt like such a big failure after my outburst. And then trying to decode what happened, what really happened. And the interesting thing is, I saw this even in my cousins. Even my cousins carry such an anger. I've seen it in the adults around me. And I felt like this anger is not really mine. It seems like I've inherited it.
Mm.
But can I be the one to stop this cycle?
Mm.
In my whole journey, whole self-discovery has been trying to find out, why am I so angry?
Mm.
And I noticed that when I opened my practice, invariably I attracted women who were either angry with patriarchy or they were angry with their own mothers.
Yeah. Yeah, which is a big, um, that's a big one. I would say most women are probably angry on some level with both. And I'm also curious just about culture. Um, I know I'm from two cultures, right? I have a Mexican father and um, I guess she's been in the United States or her family's been in the United States many generations. So kind of middle American WASP, kind of Christian, I guess, and just very different,
Mm.
right? My father's family, there was a lot of, a lot of hugging and kissing and yelling, and there was a lot of expression, a
Mm.
lot of demonstration of what people were feeling, and that was okay. And then my mother's family was like, I had no idea what anybody was feeling. Everybody sat really kind of tight and their legs close together and their arms close to their body, and not a lot of movement
Mm.
and very tucked in.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas my father's family was very not tucked in.
Mm.
And I wonder how, what, when we have permission to feel it, or when we have permission to be a little bit messy,
Mm.
as opposed to need to be what others want us to be,
Mm. Exactly. Mm.
right? That how we're supposed to behave. I mean, I still feel it in the culture. I still feel like
Mm.
there's a certain amount of don't make men uncomfortable, don't speak up,
Mm.
look nice, smile a lot, don't have a strong opinion.
Mm.
Um, and those are really, that's a lot. That's, that's a lot of tucking in, right? And that a lot of that is the patriarchy, right? Just that sense of
Mm.
value of women versus men.
Mm.
And there is, and I have one woman that I love listening to. She talks about when her mother was in her grandmother's womb. So when her grandmother was pregnant with her mother, that her mother was creating her eggs, right? At 5 months in utero, she was
Mm.
her eggs. So her as an egg and her mother and her grandmother were in the same experience,
Mm.
same time. So the same circumstances, the same nervous system, the same fear, anxiety, whatever, it was all shared.
Mm.
And that's been a really powerful image to me. just how connected we are to our mothers, and probably why we have that, just that not understanding, or carrying things that we don't fully understand, that are carried forward from our mothers.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I think you touched on that.
Yeah, that's actually the work that I follow as well, by Mother Maya. She's a former Vedic monk.
Mm,
And she talks about how the women before us, they really faced the brunt of patriarchy. And they just held all that trauma in their wombs.
mm,
And through the womb, it just keeps getting transferred to every child, not just the girl child,
yeah.
every child. And because of this trauma, we are not able to connect with our moms and vice versa. And there is then more trauma caused because of that, more struggles. And a lot of us feel victimized, whether it is by men or by our own moms or anything else that would happen in our childhood. But this feeling of victim might not have started with us. It comes from our ancestors.
Mm-hmm.
And when we feel we are a victim, if you close your eyes and you think of yourself as a victim, the first thing that happens for me is I start feeling angry. I
Mm-hmm.
start feeling heat in my body. And somewhere I feel like I want revenge or I want resolution. And it hurts the body.
Yeah. Yeah, it does. Yeah, it's amazing how kind of primal that is. Right. And I also my mother was very, I mean, I have a sense of being actually in my mother's womb,
Mm-hmm.
her anxiety and her fear of having a second child.
Mm-hmm.
My brother's disabled and he was a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel that. I don't think that my mother was a cruel person, but she was also a overwhelmed.
Mm-hmm.
And eventually my father left, and there was just a lot of her not being able to hold space because she wasn't held. And so I see that, how it's definitely, and her mother, my grandmother, who is also not held. Her mother died when she was a toddler. And so there's this, yes, there is this kind of children raising children in a way, or unheld children raising children. And it
Mm-hmm.
does. I mean, I definitely had a lot of anger as a teenager, and have struggled with depression on and off. I wouldn't say struggle. I feel like I just get sucked into it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's comfortable in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
um, and that's one of the reasons why I guess I really like playing with the emotions more, because I think that I didn't know what any of them were when I was younger, that there was a lot of just unknowing. There wasn't a lot of awareness of feeling, of having feelings, of what they were called,
Mm-hmm.
what all the different things felt like. And not that I wasn't feeling them, it was just not talked about. It
Yeah.
was not talked about. And it's really interesting how we pass that on. I mean, I look around me in this world where we are, we live in the Bay Area, and there's this, right? Technological advancements. And I'm like, but we're still children in some ways. And that, yeah, that we spend a lot of time collectively. I wouldn't say that everyone I know, I feel like a lot of the people that I'm around in community, we work on knowing where we are consciously, but that a lot of the collective is still very much, just like you said, that angry and retaliation and revenge and not understanding their own emotions or how to hold them or to move with them or move through them or whatever it is. Honor them.
Yeah, absolutely. You're so right. We are not taught about emotions in school and how to handle them, which is something we really should be teaching, in schools. But this affects everything, our own health, health of our relationships, our workplace culture, everything is affected by this. So important.
Everything.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
everything.
I find, like you said, we don't know how to handle the emotions, how to watch them. Like in yoga, we are so big on being a witness. Right? Be a witness, and the mind is different from the soul. So you can just witness your mind like a child, and he's going through all its emotions. But that is one thing for sure. At the same time, in the Vedas, there is this statement that there is only one reason for all the problems in the world. Only one. And the answer is avidya, which means lack of awareness. So I find that when I have these clients, suppose I had one lady who was very upset with her mother, extremely upset. She never had the childhood she wanted and is so angry. And then we did a meditation where she actually goes back into her womb. And then through her womb, she goes into her mother's womb. And then she goes into grandmother's womb and so on and so forth. And then we skip to the first woman in her whole lineage. And she's going and actually holding these women, like you said very rightly. They've not been held, they've not been cared for and valued. And what we do in the meditation is we go back to every woman and we give them a gift. And it's such a powerful meditation. Every time we do it, when the women come out of it, they feel so supported. All these ancestral women, almost you can imagine they are standing over you and showering you with their blessings. And you remember that you are powerful.
That is so beautiful.
Yeah. So I'm going to share something which is even more surprising.
That is
Okay,
so
very
beautiful.
surprising. Thank you. So this lady who was so upset, Padma, she was so sad and angry that she could not even smile. And when she did the meditation, what happens is our womb is a portal. Carries wisdom from generations before. And when she connected with her womb, she actually got a message that when she was in her mother's womb, her mother tried to connect with her. And this fetus tells the mother, please don't try to bond with me. I have come in this lifetime to learn detachment. This is my path to do the penance I need to do for my own evolution. So I really plead you to keep away. And this lady, she's doing the meditation and you just see tears rolling down, tears, continuous tears. And suddenly, from this whole lifetime of thinking she's a victim of her mother, she now comes into the powerful seat and realizes she decided.
Mm,
She wrote her destiny.
mm,
And things just changed. She called her mother and things shifted between them. So the awareness, expanding your awareness to see the bigger picture, that itself is so healing and powerful.
yeah, that's beautiful. Yes. Well, bringing in that, thank you for bringing that in, just that the soul level of awareness.
Mm.
Um, that's just beautiful because it is. I mean, sometimes I feel like I can zoom out. I wouldn't say sometimes. I would say that we have different levels of consciousness, right? That we have the small level of consciousness, and then we have right, just different, like the powerful and the knowing and the making things happen. And then there's that zooming out into the space where that I don't even know how to describe it. You did it so beautifully, but just that sense that the balance is that there's perfection in all of it. And there is not even necessarily reasoning. It's just more like that this is the balance that I need to create, or this is the balance I'm looking for in this life. This is the thing that is helping me to find myself. Doesn't make logical sense, right? We like to think of things like just making sense,
Mm.
right? Like if you do this, it makes you feel powerful. And it's like, well, but power can be very destructive,
Mm.
right? That sometimes how we learn isn't how we think we need to learn. I mean, we all have been through extremely challenging circumstances and have grown from them.
Mm.
And some of us can be angry about them, and I have been angry about them. And then sometimes we come to the awareness of, wow, look at how much I've changed because of them. I've become more of who I wanted to become. I've
Mm.
become more of myself.
You know,
And that sometimes takes some work, right? But that's the gift of the awareness. I love that you said that. The awareness of which again can be so much bigger than we think.
yes. And so while I'm listening to you, there is something else also that's coming up. You said very rightly that the suffering that we go through, the struggles we go through, it teaches us and we have some growth. We get something out of it, right? So when I became a theta healer, I learned that when people struggle, some people have a subconscious program. I need to suffer to grow spiritually.
Mm.
So they actually create situations around themselves which make them suffer without realizing. And they keep wondering, why am I suffering so much? Why am I suffering? Why is my life a misery?
Mm.
But deep in their subconscious, they have such a strong belief that I need to suffer to grow spiritually.
Mm.
So when theta healing, when we actually dig deep with a client and the client says finally, and we test in the body that yes, they carry the belief, then I ask them, would you like to know how you could grow spiritually without having to suffer?
Mm.
And the immediate answer is yes. Yes, please. And that's what we do then. We change the belief. because this belief might not have been ours. It might have come to us from our ancestors again, or from our own past life. And it kind of flummoxes us that what's going on, why are we suffering all the time.
Yeah. And I think there's also this sense of culturally, I think that I hear a lot, especially in this culture, American culture, that things should be really easy. And so when they're not easy, like I always feel that I'm being told that you can have the big car and you can have the big house and you can have whatever you want, and it will just come. If I watch commercials, I feel that way.
Yeah.
But what I also see is that life is challenging, but it's how we meet it, right? That some things are just difficult, right? Babies born with disabilities, children with learning disorders. It's like things happen, divorce happens.
Yeah.
But it's, or business is not working the way that we want them to work. It's really how we meet it. Again, it's a challenge, but it doesn't necessarily, it's the challenge that is giving us it's giving us something to move through, or it's giving, not even move through. It's like, it's reminding us that we have the resilience. It's reminding us that we do carry the dream, that we do hold the capacity for it. And it's always, and what I love about working with my clients is that almost every one of them who's gone through something huge has then used it more often than not.
Yeah.
Right. If they've had a parent die from a certain, whatever, a specific cancer, then they become advocates, right? That they learn something from it and they carry it forward. And it builds a compassion in them, the passion in them, that I also see as a perfection in a way. That we're not all supposed to be perfect and healthy and everything works out all the time. That these challenges actually have the capacity to bring us together, to make bridges, right? But it's the capacity to do that. It doesn't always work that way. But I think that that's part of the gift, is being able to see what we're being asked to step into. Right? That the resilience, or just that embodiment of, oh, I can meet this moment and grow from this moment.
Yeah, what I'm hearing is the persistence and the resilience that we build when things are not that easy.
Yeah.
So we can get onto the other side. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can move with it. We can dance with it. And I think it's very similar for me, I guess, with emotions, right? Instead of fighting them, hating them, being ashamed of them, feeling, why is this happening? I shouldn't be like this. That same kind of dance of, how do I meet it? And if I can't meet it alone, how do I find somebody to help me meet it?
Yeah, and I would like to go one step further and say, not just meet it, but to dig deep to understand what's the message behind it.
Absolutely.
If I'm embarrassed, what am I really embarrassed about? If I'm angry, what am I really angry about? What is it that I didn't like? And maybe there is some trauma from childhood that is being triggered, and that trauma is ready to be healed. So again and again, you keep getting triggered till you identify what was that trauma. You go back and you again hold your inner child. I think what you said is gold, the fact that we've not felt held, we've not been held, not us, nor our mothers, nor our grandmothers. And that need to be held is so strong right now. And it seems like the world is coming to a point where we need to hold ourselves. We need to find that compassion within for our own selves. How many women I meet have no grace for themselves? They are continuously criticizing what they did, and they are feeling guilty. They have so many regrets. And yeah, there was one client, she had lost her child, but she was carrying that guilt for like 40 years of her life. So when we are not able to love ourselves as our own mother, then we are not able to show up fully in the world. And women need to show up fully because the evolution of this planet is dependent on women. Whether men like it or not, women have the Shakti to give birth to children. They have that rejuvenative force of Mother Earth.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. And I mean, I also think it's the feminine, and I meet men who can hold it. But it's just a bigger, I mean, I think the mother has the capacity to hold. I mean, the way I always think of it is the mother is the one who can hold, right, the angry child and the disabled child and the stillborn child and the child who's a murderer and the child who's depressed. Like the mother has the capacity to do that.
Yeah.
Whereas, and it's a gift. I mean, I wouldn't say all mothers have that, but I think that that's the gift of the mother, to love your child no matter what, and to keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger because of your children. And yeah, it's interesting because it's such a paradox, because yes, women haven't been held. And I think a lot of that is because the patriarchy, because there is a lot of conditional, like things are very conditional. It's a very empty pot, right? It's there's not much nourishment in conditional anything. Well, that's not totally true, but I think there's something just about that feminine quality that has that capacity, right? And it's not that men are, a healthy male energy is quite beautiful in its own right. But the patriarch is not healthy. It wants all of it, right? It wants to eat the whole meal and not share the meal.
Like when I'm hearing you, I am also remembering that today men are very different. Like you're saying, I do find that they are more compassionate and kind. But the reason I say that the evolution of the planet is dependent on women is really because of this ability to give birth.
I agree.
That Shakti that we carry in us. And like you have a child and so do I, the whole process of the 9 months and the delivery is a rite of passage. The amount of pain we undergo, it's just for us to step up for this big purpose. And whether you have a child or not, you still have that Shakti within you. You might not have a actual human baby, but you have maybe a project or something you've given birth to, and you have that energy within you. So, and I see that today, if I have a course or a circle or a yoga class, how many women are flocking to all these healers and all these programs, because everyone is feeling that need within to find themselves, to find their power back, right? Do you also experience that, Padma?
I do, and I love that the way you said that, because it made me it's like I almost see that the culture of the single family, like husband, wife, child, husband, wife, couple children, that it's very isolating, right?
Mm.
That women flock together because that's where we learn in community to hold each other, and then that feels really nourishing. And especially when you can find a community that holds you the way that you need to be held. And men are different. I know men don't seek that out as much, even though I know in indigenous cultures men have their own community. But I do think that that's a need. And just when you were saying it, it was like, God, that makes so much. No wonder women, join these communities, because they need it. We need it.
Yeah, absolutely. We need to be held. We need to be seen. We need to be heard. And when we get these three things and fill our own well, we go back to our families and we can offer this to them. Because men also need to be seen, heard, and held. And so do our children.
Yeah. And also learning that with other women.
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of the not feeling held by women, because it's almost like we've lost that in a way, as a culture of being like, you live over there and you live over there and you live over there. Like the cultures that stay connected seem to have, they just you just seem like the difference between my father's family and my mother's family. They're just so much more joy. There was so much more support. And everything was perfect, but it was such a palpable difference. And just how I felt held by the family. Yeah, because women holding women is also something that I see getting better, but I see it as it's been challenging.
In what way has it been challenging?
Right. And that might not be in your culture, but it's definitely, I feel, I mean, I would say in the American culture, it is because it's so competitive, and because of our, I mean, I guess I would say for myself, being a single mom, it was really challenging. I wasn't invited into people's homes very often as a single mother, right? Because I was a single woman. And so with couples, there's a certain amount of like lack of safety, right? That is part of our cultures. Lack of safety around other women. They're going to take your man. There's this. And I see that as women wanting to shift that. I see it's still part of it, but I see that it feels different than even 10 years ago, 20 years ago. Feels different.
Yeah. Now, I completely understand what you're saying, because Indian culture is very similar to Mexican culture. That's what I feel. We all love food and we have parties and loud music, and we have no problem expressing our feelings. We are loud people. And I was there in that community till 2013. I was with everyone, and 2013 I moved to the US, and now I'm in this American culture, and I'm on my own with my husband and two children. So I completely understand what you're saying.
Yeah, it's a different culture.
Yeah, and I really feel like when we are with all our family people, I don't feel any stress. It seems like it's just divided among all the people, you know? And the minute I'm in America, I feel like this is my basket of things to do, jobs, responsibilities, and I'm all alone. And this basket is just feels too heavy. So, yes, yes, yes to everything you said.
I think that's one of the things that I think will change. Um, and I would like to see that move a little more quickly.
Mm,
but but I hear it a lot. I hear the need to be in community, to work in community, to support each other, to move in away from that, the very patriarchal, you can do it alone, you know,
mm.
be number one, you're on your own.
Yeah. And you are also a yoga teacher, and
Hmm.
so am I. And I have noticed that when people come to a class, there are like six people, and I would like them to introduce themselves, have some community, but somewhere they are used to being anonymous. Like, they just come, their mouth is sealed, they come, do their yoga, no talking even with me. And then they're done, roll up your mat and leave. And somewhere I'm like waiting, like, can we have some introductions? And so I wonder why yoga classes are designed this way, you know?
Yeah.
Why can there not be more introduction and more community where people are anyway coming,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. And I think that that's again part of the westernization of yoga. When I first started going to yoga in New York City, I went to an ashram. It was near my work.
Mm-hmm.
It was integral yoga. There's one in San Francisco as well, but it was an ashram. So people lived there and the monks taught there. Um, and it was much more intimate, but it was also this was, 30 years ago. It was women, a lot of dancers,
Mm-hmm.
very few men,
Mm-hmm.
mostly gay men.
Mm-hmm.
And it was different. And it's changed a lot. It's become more athletic.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, not so much in the ashrams. I think, some of the ashrams they still pull more from the spiritual teachings than the physicality,
Mm-hmm.
which is what I was drawn to.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, so it's almost like they're two different worlds now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think that and I love what you said, and I think there are ways to recreate that. And
mm,
and I like that you spoke that,
yeah, absolutely.
because that
Mm.
also feels really important.
Yeah. Because come to see of it, after COVID, so many yoga classes are online,
Mhm.
correct? But still, people are now flocking to in-person yoga classes. Why, right? They are seeking that connection.
Mhm.
So then why not just have a round of intros in the class?
Absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah, there was a teacher here. She's not teaching in person anymore, but because the studio closed because of COVID.
Ah.
I would go take her class, and she would always read something like either a sutra. I think she read a sutra every class.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and did a little short talk about it. But then she would look at everybody in the room,
Mm.
say their name, and look them in the eye. So we
Mm-hmm.
all knew everybody's name.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting. And she would just look at you and look at the next person and look at the next person.
Wow.
And it was really beautiful. It was really beautiful. I loved it.
Wow. Thanks for sharing. Maybe something I can try. Maybe have them wear name tags first. How to remember? Start with name
Right.
tags.
Yeah. Yeah. I think she signed everybody in because it was her class.
Okay.
But
Very
yeah. Oh my God, so good. Um, oh, my big takeaway for today is the womb healing and healing the womb of my womb and my mother's and my grandmother's and my great grandmother's. I just love that. Um, God, there were so many things that you said that were beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to speak to in this moment before we wrap it up?
Mm. Sure, Padma. I just want women to know that if they get very angry, they should not feel like they are not a good person.
Mm,
And that anger might just be ancestral. They don't know. So have grace for yourself. If you lose it, it's okay. Have grace, send yourself love, hold yourself, and try to find support. We women are built for connection. We are not meant to be alone and isolated. Find support, and when we ask the universe always provides.
yeah, beautiful. And I actually really like lately I've been I I told you this earlier, but my dad died about it was January 2023. So it's been over a year. It's been about a year and a half now.
Mm,
And I'd say for a year plus, even before that, a few months before, I went just into a complete fatigue and almost shut down just because it was really, really hard to take care of him. And it was really, really hard to deal with his family, his his wife and kids. There was a lot of um, just accusations and abuse. And it was just really, really hard to
mm.
watch what they had done to my father and what they were doing to me. And it was just
Oh.
really intense. And so I just shut down.
Mm,
And so something happened a few months ago where I was yelled at and yelled at and yelled at. And I could feel myself just stepping up and being like, you can't talk to me that way. And that's probably the first time I've done
mm,
that in a very long, since I was a young girl. And I was really angry for about 2 weeks. And it was like, you're not depressed.
mm,
Like you're like, listen, look at you. Something's changed. And that was a real just eye-opening
mm,
for how because I think sometimes in spiritual community I censor myself a lot. There is a lot of you can't do this, you can't do that, you're not high vibe enough, don't be a
Oh.
victim, don't do this, don't do that. And so for me, I felt like I was trying to be something,
Mm,
again, that kind of tucked in part. And it was like, why can't I move through my emotions? Why can't I? Anyway, I just think that it's very powerful to just have conversations about women are more emotional.
mm,
Um, and I think that that's part of our gift as well. And I
mm,
think sometimes there are things to be angry about. I mean, right now I feel very like there are sometimes I look at images on the screen about what's happening in the world, and I just, instead of, I can get really depressed, and then there are times where I like, no, this is time to feel compassion
Mm.
for what's happening, but to keep looking so that I can find my voice in saying, this is wrong, this needs to stop,
Mm.
right, wherever it is.
Mm.
Because I think that that has been taken away from a lot of us, that we see so much injustice around us and we don't say anything.
Say anything. Yeah,
Just think of it as normal.
absolutely.
And so, yeah, I think it's just really important to have these conversations and to not do it perfectly and to just explore, right? You said that the awareness,
Mm.
right? That the awareness is huge.
Mm. Exactly.
Yeah. All right, my dear. Thank you so much for coming. I will put your information below. We'll put links for both of our, if you want to connect with either of us, if you want to comment, if you want to, I'll put it in later in the show notes. And, and what is it? What did this bring up for you? We'd love to hear. What did it provoke in you? And share that with us. And again, if you want to reach out and ask questions or connect with either one of us, please do so. Do you have, I see you have one last thing to share.
I know, I thought you were asking me, and then I realized you were actually asking the listeners.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And I was just wondering, I feel like just chanting a mantra for healing would be really nice right now for our listeners. Would you like that,
Yes,
Padma?
please. Yes, please.
Okay, so this is the Mahamrityunjay mantra. ॐ त्र्यम्बकं यजामहे सुगन्धिं पुष्टिवर्धनम् उर्वारुकमिव बन्धनान् मृत्योर्मुक्षीयमामृतात् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. May our blessings go out to every person in the world, and may they find peace, health, and happiness. Okay.
Beautiful.